Cool, thanks for coming, everyone. This week we have a few things. This week I'm going to give Stacey the chance to say her bit while she's still here, because a couple of times I've forgotten and she's had to leave before she could do it. So, Stacey.
No worries at all. Thank you, Michael. So I just wanted to mention, because I always have another conflicting meeting, that Lee is doing yet another Flux to demo video on the 14th of December. That's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1800 GMT. So please join us. We don't have details on what he's going to be demoing yet, but we'll update the meetup page once we have that info. So thank you, Michael.
Cool, and the link is in the agenda. So
correct, thanks.
That's the link to the meetup page.
Correct.
I guess. Brilliant, thank you. All right, it says review action items from last meeting. So let's have a look at, I don't think there were any. There were a lot of notes though. Okay, so let's consider that reviewed. Philip, you had a couple of things. Do you want to jump in with one or other of those?
Yeah, sure. I can start with the easiest one, which is the second one of my points. And it was just a question about, I can add a link to this. There's this thing called like a Terraform provider development program. I'll link it here with some more information. It gives you like a nice verified badge, really is kind of the only benefit as I see it right now towards joining it, but it makes the Flux Terraform provider a bit more official or official seeming. And I think we get some support from HashiCorp or whatever, but there are some requirements. You have to send in like an application for it.
Is it something we would sort of have to do as an organization or as an open source project? Is that the idea?
Yeah, we would probably have to do it as a Flux CD organization. These are meant towards like for vendors or like for boards. So it's not something I can just go and say, yeah, the provider is going to apply for this, or because Flux has to do it.
Okay.
I can create a discussion about it and tag, because I've been talking about with Phil Souter about this. So we could tag him there and see if he has, if he can help with this. Yeah.
Yeah, good idea. Cool.
And then the second point, which is the thing I think might take a bit longer to discuss. Mm-hmm. And Stefan is not here, which is, going to make things a bit more difficult. But it's the whole source controller discussion, which we've had now for a while. For those that maybe don't know all the background, to be able to support specifically Azure DevOps, we have to have reuse two Git libraries in the source controller. There's a downside with using the second Git library, and it's that you can't do shallow cloning. So you can, like, with the lib that does not support shallow cloning of Git repositories, you can connect to Azure DevOps. And it has the extra benefit of it could support self-signed cert verification from in-memory certificates also in the future. So it has like two benefits and a downside, which is why we have to offer both options, because we don't want to take away shallow cloning from people. And the whole discussion there is around how do we enable this? Like, what is that option supposed to be called? And I think there have been a lot of ideas out there, but I feel like I want to get this merged now, because it's been a long time from the initial issue to getting a PR out there, and we are like 99% there with supporting Azure DevOps. So it would just be nice to just get this discussion done.
Yep, I know that feeling. So it's a kind of a one-way decision in the sense that if you decide to use the libgit2 version, then you get the self-signed certificate support and the protocol v2 Git protocol v2 support, and you trade that off with the shallow clones. But that's lacking shallow clones. That's a side effect. Is that correct? It's sort of you get
that's like one side of it. So you get Git v2 support, and you get then the ability to also add self-signed certificates in the future. So it's like two options, and I don't know who. There were a couple of opinions there. We had the first option was calling it like Git v2 compatibility, true, false, and that would mean like indirectly also, we also support now self-signed certificates. It's mostly like that option that kind of messes things up. As I can see a situation where you're running a self-hosted Git server, like locally in your cluster, that technically does not need Git v2, but needs self-signed certs. And then it would be weird to say enable Git v2.
Right. So Hida set out what he thought were the two only sensible options, which I sort of agree with. One is name one or other of the alternatives. So basically say use this implementation or use this implementation. And the other option is decide which one to use based on what other stuff people put in the configuration. Like if they use a self-signed certificate, then use the alternate implementation. Have I got that right, Hida?
That's correct. And the latter is, in my opinion, more interesting because it allows you to switch to another implementation as soon as the solution becomes available for the backing library. So, for example, GoGit changes their client structure, which prevents us now from injecting self-signed certificates. Then we could decide to switch to the GoGit implementation for self-signed certificates and give users the shallow clones back. So that is my preference.
But the question is there, would that actually happen? Because that would require a large rewrite of the GoGit project.
You never know, but if you tell people to hard code or to hard declare basically the implementation in their resource configuration, they're locked, even if your own product basically improves.
Yeah, on the other hand, we could see a situation where libgit2 merges their shallow clone support, even though that issue, that PR, to libgit2.
And then what prospects have we got of, either of those projects merging either of those things? I mean, plausibly, this could just stay the same for years, right?
I think I have more trust in the libgit thing allowing shallow clones than that gitgo is going to support more things, because libgit is still actively maintained, and GoGit or gitgo has
that issue's been open for years already, right?
Yeah.
So plausibly, 1 or 2 more years is not really a big difference to that. So
no, but the libgit issue has been actively worked on, and I think it's waiting for a review from someone who has not been able to review it for a couple of months at least. But there is progress to it.
So I think I lean towards explicitly naming the alternatives, the implementation, and then at some point you just deprecate that. So if it's the case that we could be in the situation where you have to make a trade-off between two different implementations for, a year even, then I think it's okay to make people choose the trade-off rather than trying to be transparent about it.
Call it like
I think
git type and then go git or libgit or whatever.
Yeah, or even just implementation, go git, libgit 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I think it is right that you've got to go one way or the other, right? You've got to be completely explicit about it, or you've got to try and do it automatically. And
the automatic thing is probably not going to work for people who self-host Azure DevOps anyways, because you can't really figure out if that Git server explicitly is going to require Git v2 or not.
No, you would have to have a flag saying use protocol v2, and then that would be one of the things.
Yeah, and then we're doing a half solution where we're partly automatically choosing the provider and partly explicitly saying. So I would prefer having either a Boolean or a type string saying use this or don't use this.
I would make it an enum then. But
yeah, I would make it an enum as well.
Okay.
So yeah, on the basis that it's actually sort of two, or there might be other things we discover that you need to switch on or off, and they're not necessarily in the same place in the configuration. I think doing it transparently might be a little bit, not transparently, doing it automatically might lead to confusion. It means you have to put caveats in different places in your documentation saying, if you use this feature, then this other thing changes.
Yeah, and with the enum, you can create a table and you can even create other solutions later on. For example, if you run into another issue and we really have to show out to Git for edge case things, it would be easy to add another option for another implementation and provide some kind of table with this supports this and that support that, and etc.
Yeah, and then we can say in sort of how-tos and guides and so on, we can say, if you need to use this, you'll have to go here and change the implementation. But look in this place for the caveats.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy with that solution. I think that's a non-controversial way of doing it. I hope at least so. And we'll just default to the standard implementation we have today, so it's not going to affect anybody who's using Flux today, anyways. And then I probably won't get it done today, but I'll fix the PR tomorrow, and then we'll merge it because I have a meetup that I'm running today later in an hour. Yeah, I'm happy.
Cool. Hida, you're happy with that? Or anyone else that wants to speak up?
One of my options. So
Simon's thumbs up. Yep, that's true. Can't argue with that. Okay, good, wonderful. Cool. All right. So we have another agendum, which is Flux UI next steps. Bianca, do you want to de-stealth?
De-stealthed.
Unstealth?
Yes. I'm not stealth. I'm no longer stealth.
Yes.
Jordan and I wanted to start attending these meetings to get more involved with the community, as we will be building a UI for Flux. And I think the first topic of next steps is basically how do we communicate these things in terms of do we want to immediately start hosting the UI in the Flux repo, for example, and where should we have these discussions? What do people think? Jordan? You
Oh,
want to
just
add
real
anything?
quick, I wasn't sure if there's a formal approval we need on the proposal that I put in the discussions. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
So
So I
to
wasn't sure.
answer,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, to answer that, so the discussion is a venue for people to indicate their support and say what they think about it. So that's cool. That's been happening. The making a repo for you to put code in, start putting code in, that needs to go through a formal thing, but it's not a very heavy formal thing. It just means that the org level maintainers, or the, what is it called, the oversight committee. Anyway, there's a sort of some people.
CNCF people.
I was just
No.
hoping. I
No,
only want
us people.
I was gonna say all I was looking for is like, how do I get on that agenda and to get the thumbs up? Or I thought that was. I wasn't sure if that was.
Yeah, it needs a thumbs up from me and Hida and Stefan as the current people on that committee.
Okay.
As the overall thing. So I think Stefan's he's out today and may not be available tomorrow, but I would say, next week, certainly we can create a repo for you.
Okay.
Well, I'm anticipating that no one will have an objection to this, but I think that's a reasonable anticipation.
Cool.
So then you'll be able to get going.
That was good. And then the second thing that Bianca and I were talking about is like at what level. I guess it's open from the start, so it kind of solves itself. But it's not going to be a private repo, I would assume. My thing was like, when do we sort of go public with it? But I think it goes public from day one with the commits. So first commit will be a README of some sort, and then pull requests from there on out.
Yeah, I think if you are ready to start pushing commits, and I expect it won't be long before you get to something that people can run, even if it doesn't do very much, just sort of a skeleton of it, then may as well start doing it in the open now.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So I'll wait for the thumbs up, and then as far as technology choice and all these different things we go through, we'll just do the normal PR process, I guess. Or do you think there's anything that needs to be fleshed out there as far as,
No, there's rules set out in the governance that cover everything. Just to sort of summarize those, it's typically you need another maintainer to approve stuff like PRs.
Okay.
So it's sort of lazy consensus, but code changes need a review, more or less.
Okay. Got it. And then maintainers will work in the new repo. It's a org level thing, right?
So yeah, we try to give each sub-project quite a lot of autonomy. So once you have maintainers, then it's sort of up to you to organize amongst yourselves how you do stuff. I think because in this situation, you may get other people contributing quite quickly, but at least to start off with, it's more or less just going to be you, Jordan and Bianca, right?
Yeah.
So, that's good. That sort of optimizes for going fairly quickly to start off with. And then once people start contributing, and if you feel that you want to invite other people to become maintainers, then you can decide when to do that.
In the beginning, how do we clarify that this is not the thing just yet? During the few first commits, when maybe there is even something you can run, but it's just not fleshed out. How do we tell the community this is not what we've prepared for you? It's very much
sure. Yeah, don't expect too much yet. Yeah, I would just put something at the top of your README.
Don't expect it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, set expectations to low.
This is not what you were looking for.
Well, maybe not quite that much, but yeah, I would just put something at the top of the README saying, using one or more of the words experimental, prototype, pre-release, any whichever of those makes sense to you, or you can be more explicit about it and put it in a whole sentence. We're just getting going, etc.
Great. That was all the questions I had. So thanks.
Wonderful. Cool.
I just have a quick question regarding that work. So is this initial work going to be like running the front end locally in the same way that Lens does, and then using the user's credentials, or are we going a different path?
Yes, that's the initial kind of MVP. In the discussion, there's kind of the first level, which is the first thing we're going to build is the kind of runs locally, and then there's kind of aspirational ways to install it. One being the next step after that being sort of installing in the cluster, and then all of the auth stuff that goes along with that, whether you're pasting kubeconfig or something like that. And then there's a sort of third aspirational one, which is calling this into another UI project. So running it as like there's a one or more React components that you sort of call into your project, and those make a call to the Flux UI backend that's running in a cluster somewhere. So those are kind of the three steps. The reason for the third one is because of projects like Backstage and Octant and anybody else who wants to run a Flux UI themselves as a component. Does that make sense?
That sounds really good. I'm guessing it's going to be more people from the maintainers who have to be involved, kind of help out with the backend stuff.
Yeah, as we get going, as we get to that second phase, probably, we want to do, because that's where it gets into security, a lot of security concerns, because it's not just on the user's laptop anymore. But as far as the initial backend, was just kind of a CRUD backend that serves JSON to the UI. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I should say not even CRUD, just read-only HTTP backend. It's not even actually doing any. Is read-only at the initial stage.
And the idea is to just proxy through to the Kubernetes API as much as possible, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Very, very boring backend.
Boring is reliable. Cool. Why did I mute myself when I started a sentence? All right. So I'm just going to check back on the agenda, make sure. Is there any other stuff coming up? Does anyone want to start a discussion about anything that hasn't put it on the agenda and just wants to do it ad hoc? Jonathan, how's the, have you been involved talking to Lee about the multi-tenant stuff?
Yeah, I had a quick discussion with Lee. I guess it was about a week and a half ago now. And he told me that he was putting the documentation together for his proposal. And we had a discussion about that. Yeah, I know he hasn't been attending these meetings as much, or at least not the ones that I've been in. So I don't know if you know where that's kind of coming along in terms of the proposal.
I don't. I would love to see it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. Me too.
Cool. All right. Good.
Would that multi-tenancy thing change anything related to the things that Stefan has published?
I believe it's going to be on the same lines based on what Lee said with me. I think he has some thoughts of his own that we were discussing. He hasn't fully fleshed it out yet, at least from the discussion that I had with him. So yeah, I think he would be better suited to answer that question than I would.
Yeah, I can just say I've set up I've set up a multi-tenancy solution through Terraform in the same vein that in the same example or the same structure this example currently exists. But I wrote the constraints in OPA Gatekeeper instead of the Caverno project. It seems to work, there's always the whole security issues, you know, with cross namespace stuff. So there's still a lot of validation there. But I can help out if there are any questions or you need somebody to test stuff.
All the cross namespace stuff makes me pretty nervous with respect to security. Yeah.
Yeah, I've basically written constraints that lock that down, so you can't do it. So it's just I don't see the point of allowing people to do cross namespace stuff unless there's like very specific reasons. So I'm just locking that all down with OPA Gatekeeper.
Yeah, right, exactly. But you shouldn't have to run OPA Gatekeeper to be able to do that. Is sort of where it's at. That's where the unease comes in. Yeah. But there's a whole discussion about that, and we don't have to relitigate it here.
Yep.
Unless someone wants to, I suppose. Anyway, maybe I drew Lee's attention to that discussion, the one about cross namespace stuff. So he may address it in his well-trailed proposal when that comes to light. We shall see. Okay. Thumbs up from Simon. Cool. All right. So if there's no more agenda, then we can cut it a bit short and everyone can have a bit of morning or afternoon back. Time for breakfast, maybe. Give it a few seconds. I think we have one or two more of these meetings, but I won't be at the next one in this time zone. So I hope everyone has a good Christmas holiday season. And I will see some of you next week. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
See ya.